How's it going, guys? This is Ideas of Ice and Fire, and I'm here with GrayArea and Secrets of the Citadel from YouTube. Today we're going to be discussing A Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones Season 7, particularly the last episode, and we will be taking some of you guys' questions from my comment section. Would you like to introduce yourselves, Gemma?
Hi, yes, I'm Gemma from Secrets of the Citadel. I'm really happy to be here today. Thank you so much for reaching out to me and inviting me. Let's get it.
No problem. And Gray?
Hey, it's Gray from the channel GrayArea. I'm so excited to be here talking with two of my favorite channels. So thanks for inviting me, and let's get into this.
All right. So I'm going to put this question to you, Gemma, first. I thought this question was very interesting. Do you think that the Hound being able to see in the flames is indicative of his greater purpose within the story?
I think so in the book, I think so in the show. Yes, I'm not really sure. There's been a lot of changes here. I was actually having a chat with Gray about this earlier on, and a lot of the Hound's visions, that specific vision that he saw, are pretty much lifted almost word for word in some places from a vision that Melisandre has in the books. So,
Or the Dance of Dragons.
Yeah, exactly. So it feels that for some reason they've decided to give that to the Hound. Whether or not the Hound himself will have some greater purpose in the books or not, I couldn't tell. I think he's going north with Jon's boy band that he's going to get together, and they're all going north, and that's going to be like this last hero vibe with his companions, and I think that's all going down. I think the Hound needed some kind of reason to believe. I think he needed a purpose, and I think that gives him that motivation. He was clearly absolutely petrified by what it was he was seeing. Thoros seemed fairly unfazed, but even Beric was, there was that shock moment. You see something in those flames. Do you believe us now? Kind of thing. So yeah, it looks like he's going to have some greater purpose. But then again, it looks like Beric should have a greater purpose. He's been brought back so many times, and I feel that this is Game of Thrones, so it would be just like the writing of this story for all these characters to appear to have this destiny and this fate, and then actually they all just die. Because this is Game of Thrones, you have been watching, right?
Yes.
The last heroes, companions, what happened to all of them? Every single one of them. Exactly. So I'm worried about the Hound right now.
See, it's interesting that you just said that, because I've always had the pet theory that Jon and Dany would die, and then Cersei would have to be the one that has to save the kingdoms from the White Walkers.
I have said this. Great.
Really?
Confirm.
Yes.
I've been saying this for months.
Trolling.
Wow.
She was trolling with it, though.
I was not. She's not going to mean to save everybody. She doesn't want to. It'll be inadvertent, but yeah, I think there's a very good chance that Cersei will be the savior of the whole realm.
I mean, I feel like it would just be so interesting. It would be just such a twist and a turn on everything, because you've got Cersei, this character that everyone hates, that now they have to root for.
Exactly.
I mean, I love it.
Yeah.
So, Gray, what do you think of the question? Do you think the Hound being able to see in the flames is indicative of his greater purpose within the story?
I do. I do think that he has a greater purpose. I don't think like he's Azor Ahai or the Prince who was promised, but I just think that he's just going to be an instrument for R'hllor in the wars to come. I don't know how he'll be used, but I think it's interesting that he's been scared of fire his whole life, and now he's going to be like some kind of champion of fire, which it's like ironic. That's the word. Ironic.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think definitely in the show it's indicative of his greater purpose, whatever they might be. But in the books, I think the Hound's story is pretty much over. I like how in the newest episode, they show him digging the graves as a callback to A Feast for Crows when he was the grave digger. I enjoyed seeing that.
I do appreciate these
mm-hmm.
little book nods that they do slip in
absolutely.
there. That if you weren't a book reader, it's a touching scene. But if you are a book reader, you're like, oh, Gravedigger, yes.
There's far more impact.
Yeah.
But I think in the books that he'll stay on the Quiet Isle, and that's his life. Because I like the idea of someone like the Hound that was such a killer and that loved killing, giving up killing and being like the one peaceful character in this whole thing from now on. I like that idea.
Yeah, it seems a little too nice for George. George will probably I don't know, have the Hound jump inside a volcano and sacrifice herself or something crazy.
No. I hope the Hound just stays dead to everyone and just lives on the Quiet Isle. That would be my favorite. That would be my favorite ending. But I know happy endings don't happen all the time. But like with the character, maybe the Hound can be the one character that gets a happy ending. Please, maybe. I don't know.
Wishful thinking.
And it would be it would be like a neutral. It would be happy for us, but it would be like a neutral ending for him. You know what I mean? Like he's just on the Quiet Isle digging graves.
He's penitent.
Right.
That's his penance till the end of time.
Right. Yes.
So I guess we can get to the next question. If Melisandre were to meet Daenerys, how do you think she would react, seeing that dragons are literally fire made flesh and Melisandre worships the fire god? Gray, what do you think of that?
I think Melisandre might lose her mind seeing a dragon. She might get that Tyrion stare, like when Tyrion seen Drogon, where he was just so amazed. Or she might actually bow down to the dragon, drop down to her knees. I kind of wondered if she would be afraid of them, or if they would be afraid of her, or if they would kind of just... I feel like for Daenerys to trust Melisandre, because we've seen Melisandre is at Dragonstone, then her dragons might have to accept Melisandre first. And however, the interaction between the dragons and Melisandre will decide whether Daenerys has any encounter with her.
That's very interesting that you mentioned that the dragons could be potentially afraid of Melisandre. Wouldn't it be interesting if they were afraid of her? What implications would that have for the story if the dragons just kind of like shied away from Melisandre's touch or something? It'd be very interesting.
That would be crazy, because that would actually be like, we don't know you. We didn't come from your god. Your god didn't make us. Get out of here. What does that say about the nature
of her lore? Yeah, that says something about the nature of her lore, of like dragons who are literally fire and flesh fear Melisandre. But ultimately, I think that it'll be something like, yeah, the dragons are cool with Melisandre in the show, for the most part.
It's going to be interesting to see how Melisandre interacts with the dragons, for sure.
Definitely. Gemma, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I do. I think when Melisandre sees those dragons, she's going to be like an Andrex puppy in a mountain of toilet roll. She's going to love that. But Melisandre is still in the show having this crisis of faith, despite the fact she brought Jon back. She is still this introverted, subdued Melisandre that we've not seen before. Even prior to the Battle of the Bastards, she was still in that very muted state. And, you know, she's gone through the whole Stannis is Azor Ahai thing, or, well, they call him the Prince that was... She uses the Prince that was promised and Azor Ahai interchangeably, but predominantly Prince that was promised in the show. And then she, of course, moved straight on to Jon Snow. He's the prince that was promised. And then Dany turns up and she's just going to think, what the hell? How many princes that were promised are there here? And I think she's just going to find the situation daunting and confusing, and it will just be more cause for her to question herself and her faith. I think the only reason she's gone there is because Jon rejected her. I think given the choice, she would prefer to be with Jon. She's seen the real war in the flames, and she knows that's Jon's war, not Dany's war. So I think she's still going to be at heart Team Jon, but you can't ignore dragons.
Absolutely not.
So who knows?
Melisandre, I think she's been shown this stuff in the flames that's turned out to not be true. So although she has power, she's questioning whether or not, I guess, it comes from that god. Because, I mean, there's no denying that she has power. But I guess she's questioning whether or not her god is telling her the truth, or whether or not her god is even a good god, perhaps.
Yeah.
And that's why she's kind of having this crisis.
Actually, and most of what she's seen in the flames is true. She's just
With her interpretation.
she's just terrible at interpreting these things, and she had this kind of sense of grandeur that she knew, and obviously she's quite possibly old enough to have lived through Aegon's conquest. So, and we don't know what her personal memories of that are. But if that was to come, if we had more light shed onto her experience of Aegon's conquest, then that is going to be the key to how she reacts to Dany's potential conquest.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, she's very sure of herself in the book for the most part. Like she does mention that, like, the art of seeing in the flames is like an art, and she says that I have practiced this art for years beyond count. There's none in my order that's better than me. So she does think rather highly of herself, and I think to have that kind of just like smashed, like you were completely wrong, I think that was a major blow to the character.
Yeah, that's got to be, quite like you said, a major blow to take. It's a questioning of her faith. It's a questioning of her existence, her entire life, and everything she stood for hundreds of years.
Absolutely.
So this is huge for her.
Yeah. Yeah, I've just been like rereading her chapter in Dance of Dragons, and what I noticed is she's trying so hard to be right, to interpret her visions correctly, that she makes mistakes. Like, she thinks Alice is Arya. Alice Karstark, she thinks that's Arya.
Yeah.
And she says when she sees the tower by the sea, she's been to Eastwatch and she knows what Eastwatch looks like. And she says that she doesn't think it's Eastwatch, but she tells Jon that it's Eastwatch anyway. So it's like you know that it's not. You're telling yourself that it's not, but but then she explains it as the visions are like that sometimes. But in her mind, she thinks that it's not Eastwatch. I've seen Eastwatch. The towers don't look like that. So it's kind of odd that she's being so hard on herself and second guessing her own vision so much. So this powerful facade that she has, I don't think she really is that powerful with the visions. I think she's powerful with like harm to her person. Like, I think she said that's what she can see the first in the flames, is anything that wants to harm her. And
that's what she learned to do first.
Right. And her shadow, like she says, any shadows I bring forth here would be terrible and no man could stand before them. So, girl, bring some shadows forth to kill the White Walkers. What do you mean?
But this is the thing, that the shadow binding and the adherence to R'hllor are essentially two separate things.
Absolutely.
She uses the shadow binding and her glamours and what have you to convince people to turn to the Lord of Light. But
yes,
I think she's not questioning her ability as a shadow binder, but she's definitely questioning her god.
Yes. Because shadow binding is something that comes out of a shy.
Yeah.
And it has all to do with the heart of darkness and that dark city Stygii and all that. So yeah, it's like a different thing. Because Mirri Maz Duur also seems to have some shadow binding skills. Because the shadows dance in Drogo's tent. Which is something very similar to what Patchface says
on the wall
in book 2. He says, "The shadows come to dance. The shadows come to dance, my lord."
Yes,
he says
so, several times.
He says that on the wall. He said, "The dead are dancing. I know."
Patchface, very, very creepy. I've always thought Patchface was creepy.
Yeah, he is creepy.
Yeah, he's the creepiest character in the whole book. I love Patchface. I am so disappointed that they didn't have even just as a cameo, just to have him
he was
jingling around behind Shireen, or I don't know.
My
would have
thing
been
is,
fun.
I would never have him around my daughter. No,
No.
there's no way. There's no way.
No, he's
There's no way I'd have this creepy clown.
drowned, creepy, vague, obscure, cryptic guy with stag antlers and bells and no, thank you.
And isn't he like the same age as Stannis?
He's
the
because he
older
arrived when
guy.
they were children. He
He
arrived
must
when they were
be.
children.
Yeah, he must be.
He arrived on the ship that their father and mother died on.
That's right. And,
he was the only
they found
survivor.
him 3 days later. He was dead. He was drowned. He'd been under the sea. And I cannot not think of Sebastian the Crab and that song. When he talks
Under
about
the
it.
sea.
I know, it spoils it. And I'm like, down where it's better, down where it's wetter. No, I can't do it.
I love The Little Mermaid. It's one of my favorite Disneys. I'll break out in the song if you keep on.
I model myself on The Little Mermaid. I was Ariel when I was a little girl. I loved her. But we've
That's
so got
awesome.
off track here.
Real Gemma back in.
Definitely.
He's under the sea.
Under the sea for sure. So I'll take another one of these questions. Are the White Walkers seem to have been marching since season 2, and they have not reached the wall yet? What's taking them so long? What do you think about that, Gemma?
I love this question. That is a brilliant question. I actually saw, I think it was on my Twitter feed yesterday, somebody had mapped the journeys of all the respective characters, and there was a little color-coded key, and there's like Varys going back and forth and up and down and Littlefinger all over the place, and then there's this tiny little line from Hardhome to the wall of the walkers, the White Walkers. It's like, what the hell's taking these guys so long? What's taking them so long is they can't get past the wall, so
Yeah.
they're taking their time, they're gathering their army, they're banding around, picking up as many wildlings as they possibly can, and anybody else who's unfortunate enough to be behind the wall. They can't get past the wall. We assume they can't get past the wall. We've never actually seen them try, but I think the time it's taken them, as this person who asked this question correctly pointed out, it's taken so long, would indicate that they can't get past the wall. So I think that's almost confirmed now. I mean, I did do a theory video where I did play with the idea that perhaps this isn't actually true. Perhaps they're biding their time for another reason. Maybe they were just waiting for winter. We don't know what order that comes in, do we? Is it the walkers that bring winter, or is it winter that... But we don't
Very
know.
good point.
So who knows? I think it's the wall.
The White Walkers clearly have like a long form plan that they're working on. They were around for decades before the start of the series because they were taking Craster's sons.
That's right. Yeah.
So they've been around. They've been plotting and doing what they're doing for a while now. So either they can't get through the wall or it's not time.
Yeah.
Because they're very patient. So what do you think, Gray?
Yeah, I think the same, that they can't get past the wall. But I do know in George's original outline for the books, there's an insert in there where he talks about they ride down on the winds of winter. So I think they did possibly have to wait for winter.
That line gave me chills.
And we literally saw that, didn't we? In after the credits, the proper opening after the cold opening was them literally riding down on the winds of winter. I loved that scene. That was
epic.
Yeah.
That was an incredible scene. I really liked it.
I did too.
Did anybody else count how many White Walkers there were in that scene? Because I got 6.
Didn't. Were they? I didn't count.
6. I got 6
White Walkers.
I freeze framed. I went back over and over. It was all misty and blurry, but I counted 6 White Walkers, which is 2 more than we've ever seen before, if we don't include that lands beyond the Lands of Always Winter scene, where there was obviously 13 of them.
This question wasn't given to me, but this is something that I'm going to ask both of you. Do you think we'll get dialogue from the Night King this season?
No.
If we get dialogue from the Night King, it'll be the same dialogue we got from Daenerys in episode 1. Shall we begin?
Shall we begin?
How much? She got $2.5 million for that. I'm not even kidding you. $2.5 million.
Honestly, it was weak. I expected. I'm used to Daenerys saying epic stuff. Since the end of season 1, where she gives that speech about how I am the dragon's daughter, and those who would harm you will die screaming. It's been her thing. She just gives a speech every season.
Fierce
every single
Daenerys.
season.
Fierce Daenerys. I love fierce Daenerys.
I love Daenerys. I think she has one of the best plots in the books. I absolutely adore. I know some people have their problems with it around the time that Dance with Dragons comes along. Some people say that it's a little bit boring. She spends a little bit too much time in Meereen. But I felt like it was necessary to show Daenerys that ruling is not necessarily an easy thing. And also, I enjoy that scene where she's out in the desert and she's hearing the whispers from the stars at the end of Dance with Dragons. I really enjoy that a lot.
Yeah.
Her berry quest.
And the whole question mark that arose with her bleeding. And was that an early moon blood, or was that a miscarriage? And I think it was a miscarriage. But because the detail that chapter goes into that's from a woman's point of view, that's not a normal period. So and then the question marks that arises. Is this has Mirri Maz Duur's curse been broken? Then what does this mean for the future? She thought she was barren. So this leaves a lot of questions opened up. But I must admit, I've read Song of Ice and Fire. I literally could not tell you how many times. They are reference material for me now. But I have had read-throughs where I've gone through just one chapter, one character, sorry. So I've literally thought, right, I'm going to read Daenerys, and I've read the entire books through just her chapters. I've done it with Jon, I've done it with Tyrion and several others. But I think actually my read-through of just Daenerys was probably one of my favorites, because you can really see that arc. And her journey is actually, I agree with you, it's quite an incredible one.
It is very incredible. I love Daenerys' story throughout the books. I think that she is the most fantasy character in the series. If that makes any sense, because she's she's the princess exactly with dragons. Yeah, I enjoy that a lot. I was really young when I started reading these books. I'm 23 now, and when I started reading them, Feast for Crows was just coming out. So it's been
baby.
Yeah. I was gonna say the same thing.
I was 25 when I started reading the books, and it was a couple of years ago, let's just say.
I really connected with Daenerys when I read it my first time. I really connected with her and also Jon Snow. They were my favorite characters.
The only issue that I had with Dance of Dragons with some of Daenerys' chapters was I start to kind of think that the bittersweet ending was going to be Daenerys never going to Westeros. I thought she was going to literally stay in Meereen, and that was going to be the bittersweet ending, was her being happy to rule Meereen.
That would
I would have been mad.
That would absolutely suck.
Yeah. With all this stuff about her destiny and how all this stuff that she has to do, I'd be very disappointed if that were.
Do you know what would be wonderful though? And this is a little bit of tinfoil on my behalf, and please don't lynch me.
Bring it on.
Please don't throw lemons at me in anger. But I'd love her to just pop to Old Town one day and go, oh, there's that house with the red door, and I thought it was in Bravos all along, but no, here it is, and just go home. You know?
And that's just it.
Just live happily ever after.
She's just I don't want to conquer.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
No. I think at her core, she's a I think that's what.
I was gonna say
at the end of Dance, you can go ahead, Gray.
No, go.
I was gonna
just
say
gonna
at the
say she
end
was
of.
born to do this. That's all I was gonna say.
Mm-hmm. Well, at the end of Dance, it's like Quaithe tells her, "You're not meant to rule. Dragons plant no trees. Remember who you are. The dragons understand. You need to understand that you are a conqueror.
She's a
more than
conqueror.
anything."
Which is why I don't see her making it, and then Dario obviously pinches Quaithe's lines, doesn't he? You're a conqueror, not a ruler. So they've hit us over the head with that a lot in both book and show. She is not making it to the end. She can't. She's too mythological.
Mm-hmm. She's a legend. She's literally a legend.
Yeah.
She's a myth.
I think since you brought up Quaithe, and the dragons know do you. I think that Melisandre, when she goes to Dragonstone, like she's gonna tell Daenerys the Quaithe stuff. The dragons know do you. She's gonna like tell. I think we're gonna get some of that from Melisandre.
That'd be awesome.
I like that a lot.
I love
actually.
Quaithe.
I'd not considered that. And I do like it. I mean, there are a lot of changes. We all know that. I'm trying very hard to see these as separate entities now, but I really do appreciate those book nods. Even if it's a different character saying the words, I still want to hear them. So I would really enjoy Melisandre to take on that mantle and give Daenerys all of these vague, cryptic, weird clues and hints. If she went into the 3 betrayals, I would scream at my screen. I would love that.
Yes. Like, I was really disappointed that we only got Quaithe one time in the show, and then she just never comes again. Like, I was very disappointed. And I know probably, like, the average show watcher, if you said Quaithe to them, they have no idea what you were talking about. So she's probably not going to come back.
Maybe we should clarify that. The woman with the weird mask.
Yeah. They'd probably still be like, who?
The one that told Jorah loads of weird shit when they were in Karth.
What's Karth? I guarantee you get some what's
I'm trying.
The place was the House of the Undying.
Don't even go there.
You just start a loop and they would not know what you were talking about.
What's the House of the Undying?
I think that most people that watch this show are just coasting by barely.
Do you know what? This is why when we're Game On season, my real life friends who are casual, they all watch it, but they've not read the books, and they literally run when they see me coming because they're like, "Oh no, here's Gemma and she's going to talk to me a lot about a little crap I don't understand." I went round to my friend's house for coffee the other week, and oh my god, I had to explain to her who Rhaegar Targaryen was.
Oh god.
I had the same
She's
kind
seen
of
it all.
conversation.
She's seen up to season 6. She's seen the Lyanna Tower of. She's seen the Tower of. She didn't know who Rhaegar Targaryen was.
Yeah, I had the same situation like that. She was like, "What? Jon Snow is a Targaryen?" I was like, "Child."
I feel like I don't know what's going on, and I'm not even lying, but I had the exact same conversation with somebody. But it was through Facebook. I posted something about Game of Thrones on my personal Facebook, and she's like, "I love the show," and I'm like, "The books are so much better," because I always say that to people because I'm always trying to get people to read them. And yeah, it was the same exact conversation, literally the same exact conversation.
And do they all think that Robert Baratheon was Jon's dad? Because that's the vibe I'm getting, and I'm like, what?
Actually,
how did you know?
Last year, a friend of mine, when that Jon Snow scene happened last night, that's exactly what a friend of mine said. My friend Matt asked me that question. He's like, is Jon Snow the old king from seasons 1 dad? And I'm just like, no. And I just say to him, like, if you don't get it, just wait till next season. Maybe they'll explain it more. Like, I'm just not. I can't.
Definitely.
So let's get some more of these questions. Did Arya free Edmure from the twins? What do you think, Gray?
If she did free him from the twins and they didn't show it, I feel like that's just horrible writing. but I don't think she did, because I think they would have showed it. But I do remember Walder Frey saying he was back in the dungeon. So I don't know. Maybe she did. Maybe she put him in charge. Maybe we'll flash back to the twins at another time and see Edmure at the twins. I'm not sure. Because who would become acting lord of the twins now that she's slaughtered everyone?
I mean, she killed like the adult males, but like they're supposed to be like still like women and like their sons, because like they're probably like young teenage boys, because like there are a lot of Freys like just floating around.
There are
So
a lot of Freys. I created an online A Song of Ice and Fire family tree. There are over 700 people, all connected, starting with Aegon the Conqueror. And you know what? It took me 3 days to do House Frey. I was so pissed off with House Frey. I'm like, Walder Frey, how many kids do you need? I mean, seriously, there are so many Freys. There are hundreds, and I think about 60 of them are called Walder, whether they're female or male. So, and this was what I picked up from this scene, the Arya scene. She says, you didn't kill them all. You should have ripped them out root and stem, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, you're making the exact same mistake.
And showing them who did it.
Exactly. When the Red Wedding happened, Arya was a young girl that nobody would have given any credence to. There are plenty of Frey young girls that in a couple of times could become crazy faceless assassins, and then this cycle of vengeance, but they're never going to touch upon that in the show. Not at all.
Never. It's not that deep.
No.
So do you think Arya freed Edmure?
Do you know, I'm really confused. I don't even know where Edmure is at this point. The last time we saw him, obviously, he was at Riverrun, and he was in the keep. He was doing his thing, and then we get that sort of line that Walder says he's still in the dungeons. I think this is just a big hole, to be honest.
You think it's just a big hole in the whole thing?
I think
that they
the
just didn't think about
actor
it.
is now doing a different show, and they couldn't bring him on. I think they're just going to pretend like that never happened.
No one knows who he is, anyways. This is only a question that like someone would put on one of our videos. No one is asking about Edmure. No one knows who that is. Okay, here is another question. Do you think that Beric Dondarrion will die for good this season? Will he give the kiss of life to a character, perhaps Arya, as she is playing Lady Stoneheart's role, or die in battle with the White Walkers? Gemma, I'll put this question to you first.
I think, well, I mean, I don't want them all to die. We know Beric, Thoros, probably Gendry, Tormund, the Hound. There's so many people that are going to go north of the wall because we've seen them in the trailers and all the pictures. But if this is a true reflection of the legend of the last hero, none of them are coming back. And I'm really concerned. I think Thoros will die first, and without Thoros, then Beric's days are numbered. There's no one to bring him back, and actually, I think Beric would welcome death.
Absolutely.
He's had enough. He's tired. He's lost everything about himself. He can barely, like in the books, he can't even remember much before when Ned sent him out in the first instance. He is a hollow, soulless shell of a man, and actually his existence is tragic right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that. Yeah, definitely. So I think that Beric will definitely die in this season. I don't think they're going to use him after this season. As far as him giving the kiss of life to a character, I don't see that happening, and I definitely don't see how it could be Arya. I think he'll probably die last hero style with Jon Snow.
I agree.
And also, on a side note, I think that Jon Snow is probably going to be like the last one, and then we're going to see Benjen again, and then that'll be Jon Snow's resolution to Benjen. It's like, so that's what happened to you, because he never got to see him.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm completely with you on that one.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one too. Beric, in the books, he's already dead, so I can't see him. I mean, I see him in the trailer with his sword, and it looks like he's beyond the wall. But after that, I don't see him coming back. And like you guys said, with Thoros dead, there's no one to give him the last kiss.
Absolutely. So, Do you think Bran will meet Jon Snow and Sansa this season?
I really hope so. I want Bran to arrive at Winterfell in episode 2, but I'm not sure that's going to happen. We may get all of the Starks minus Jon together at Winterfell, but I think Jon and Bran might just miss each other.
What do you think, Gemma?
Yeah, in short, my answer is no. I'm completely with Gray. I think he will meet up with Sansa back at Winterfell, but I think at that point Jon will have already left, because I think Bran is coming back to Winterfell either next episode or by the latest episode 3. They are moving this timeline so rapidly now, which I really do enjoy, actually, because we're all so keenly aware how little time we've got here. So I think Bran is going to rock up at Winterfell very soon, and we cannot have that reveal that early. The first thing Bran will say to Jon when he sees him is, "Oh, hey, by the way, you're a Targaryen." or at least Lyanna's your mother. You know, if Bran hasn't made that connection with Rhaegar. But I mean, let's face it, you would have to be completely stupid to have not made that connection. And Bran just looked at Ed, and it was like he'd been looking at his internet download history. He knew everything about this guy. He didn't touch him. There was no weirwoods. He just knew, like he was seeing through his eyes without any skin changing or warging. Or this is some seriously omnipresent, higher level. Bran has leveled up big time. So big time. They have to miss each other. Otherwise, it's too soon.
Mm-hmm. It's said in the books. Bloodraven says to Bran, he said that the children carved the faces in the trees as a beginner's tool for green seers. And he says to Bran that soon you'll be able to see far beyond these trees. So he says to Bran that one day you won't even need these trees to see. You'll be able to see anything that you want. Because if you remember, and also if you remember in book 1, for a moment, Bloodraven shows Bran, it was before Bran woke up and he's having a dream. He sees the whole of everything. He sees dragons in the far east, and he sees the land of always winter, and he sees his mother and his father, and he sees the entire planet in that one instant.
Yeah. That is one of my favorite chapters ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an amazing chapter with the three-eyed crow, with the red raven, three-eyed crow. Yeah.
That was the moment for me when I was reading it. I mean, so far up to that point, it was like a historically based fantasy-ish. Mm-hmm. And I thought, this is cool. You know, I like history. I love the Wars of the Roses. This is cool. This is, we've had that prologue with the White Walkers. That's intriguing. Mm-hmm. And then Bran's coma dream, and like, whoa, yes. This is something else. And that was the moment I knew I was going to love this story. Absolutely. But yeah, I think in the show, he's definitely reached that point now. I think that's quite clear, that calm, deliberate way he just studied Ed and just knew.
And it looked like he was seeing the Night King or the Night King's army. It looked like he was seeing that. And the way that they cut the scene, it looked like he was in the eye of the giant. But he's not at any tree now. So at the greatest point that Bloodraven describes his abilities to be is where he is. So I think that's awesome.
He's extremely powerful. Like I am a huge Dune fan, and I don't know if you guys know about Dune, but basically it's sci-fi. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there's the character Paul Atreides, who's he's called the Kwisatz Haderach, and it's basically he who can be in many places at once. Because he can see the future and he can see the past.
But
so
he's
basically the master of fate.
Can they? They can't control him. They
lose control of him.
They've lost completely.
Not the Aes Sedai, the Bene Gesserit.
Right,
the Aes Sedai from Wheel of Time.
I've got all my fantasies completely merged.
I have no
into
idea.
One fabulous world.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm on. I'm like
time.
I'm like in Skagos right now. I have no idea what you're talking about.
But yeah, it's been a long time. June is old. It's really
Yeah,
old.
it is very old. It's from the
Yeah,
60s.
I know they can't control him. I know he's an issue. Definitely.
But I always
remember
thought that Bran was kind of similar to that character in his abilities.
Yeah.
Like Bran has all this gigantic wealth of knowledge from the past, and he also can get these glimpses of the future. So he can kind of move fate in the direction that he wants because he can see the future. He knows what path to take. You know what I mean?
Do you know what? I've got this crazy theory about Bran, and I'm sure you've probably come across this at some point. This is not necessarily something that's just come solely from my brain. I do a lot of research.
Is it that he's the Lord? Is it that he's the Lord of Light?
No.
Okay.
My idea is, and I really want this to happen, is that basically after all of these events are said and done with, this is that the long night that they all talk about from 8,000 years ago never happened. First time that the White Walkers have appeared in Westeros. And all of these events unravel, and then Bran goes back in time to build the wall,
legends,
to build Winterfell, to build Storm's End. And yes, exactly, he tells all of the people, the first men, these legends of his cousin, hero. He tells them about the Sea King, who Euron Greyjoy. He tells them about Lan the Clever, Tyrion Lannister, and these stories merge and morph over time and become the stories that old Nan tells Bran at the beginning. It's beautiful, isn't it?
that is amazing.
I got the chills.
That was really incredible.
Isn't it beautiful? It's beautiful.
It is. Wow.
I'm over here with goosebumps.
Like, for real. Like, I want that to be the truth now. I just want that to be what happened.
In my head, that's kind of canon now because I've considered this so much. I really need to do a video on this one.
Jesus, that blew my mind. That honestly just blew my mind.
But wouldn't that beauty, that circular, the fact, all these, little Bran is listening to his stories.
Yes, it all just comes full circle.
Yeah,
just love it.
And it also makes sense kind of with the show, because on the show, Benjen tells Bran, "You will be waiting for the Night King." He doesn't say anything about get Jon or. And everyone always assumes that it's Jon and Daenerys, but that is the ultimate weapon to beat the Night King.
Yeah.
So
a physical battle. This is a battle of the minds.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. Because I always imagine kind of like a mental battle at the end of it.
Yeah.
Between whatever the force is that's controlling the White Walkers in the books and Bran. Like I always imagine kind of something like that, something a little bit more abstract that couldn't necessarily be portrayed very well on screen. So I think that's maybe why they had to create the physical Night King, who I don't necessarily think is going to be like a physical figure in the book. I think that the way the White Walkers work, it's on a more like abstract level that you can't really portray in a show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the way you said the force behind the White Walkers, because I was watching an interview with George R.R. Martin a few days ago, and he's talking about the scene where Sam kills the White Walker with the dragon glass, and his words were, to his astonishment, it works and the spells are broken. And I was like, whoa, and I rewound it, and the spells? What? What? So,
oh God!
You know, that's something to chew on.
Yes,
definitely.
That's very, very interesting.
Definitely, because he doesn't really give us anything except for when he drops fire whites in the middle of your coffee in the morning.
See, a lot of people had questions about that. What a lot of people asked me was, and I really couldn't answer this question. They say George R. Martin says in this interview that their heart stopped beating and that they're not bleeding, but Beric Dondarrion bleeds a lot in the book when the Hound kills him.
He bleeds a lot.
So like there's kind of a discrepancy. So what's
I
don't
think
know.
he just kind of dropped that in there as a way to explain the opposite to an interviewer that maybe didn't fully understand the story.
The description that he gave, in my opinion, was more a description of Lady Stoneheart or Cold Hands.
Mm-hmm. That is true.
But not bleeding. I don't think Cold Hands bleeds either, and that's why he has those pools of blood like in his fingers and stuff.
Cold Hands is the only white that's animated by ice that has a mind of his own as well.
Right.
Which is very interesting.
Yeah, the fire white thing threw me for a loop, but I don't know.
I remember you messaging me that morning going, WTF, what the hell is going on here? Fire white. And I was like, do you know what? Great, it's like 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm off back to bed. You know,
she's not telling the truth. She was like, what the fuck? Oh my god.
It's true, I was.
Link the article. link the interview.
Guilty as charged.
I didn't hear about it until way later in the day, actually. Because I just wasn't on the internet, and I was like, what? I just kind of got hit with it suddenly. So
yeah, that was a curveball. I think George was just trolling for some attention the day before season 7 landed.
Yeah, because he did that Valeria, that last Valeria, and everybody's like,
oh yeah, people freaked out.
Wins and winner and shit.
I was waiting with bated breath. Come on, George, what's going on within this hour? It was a Babylonian biblical reference to and then he used it for the doom, and you massive troll, George.
This cryptic post, and you think people are gonna freak out? You've got like the most anticipated book in the world.
Comments.
He did.
Out of order. Because I was there, you know. What does this mean? Explain yourself, damn it.
The hype was real on that one. Oh my god!
See, I think if George R. Martin, if he wants to set some people at ease, just release a preview chapter. Just release another preview chapter. If the book is not going to be announced, just give us one, please.
And make it.
I'll take one.
Make it equally as good as Forsaken, and I'll be good for another year.
I love the Forsaken.
Me too.
That's my shit. I love that chapter.
He's done. He's finished that book. I'm telling you guys, he's finished. I don't know
chilling.
why he's hanging. Maybe he's going to do that double release that everybody's been speaking about. Winds and Dream. That would be fabulous. He's written that book, and I'll tell you where it is. It's inside Lyanna's statue in the crypt.
I'll tell you something about.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say some. I saw something. I saw an interview that's like might be like a little bit indicative of his psyche. It was like him and Stephen King were interviewing each other, right? And like George says to Stephen King, he says, "How do you write so fast?" He says, "You don't never like write an entire page and then look at it and delete the whole thing and realize that you never had any talent." Like that's what he says to Stephen King. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe he's just a perfectionist. I don't know, because I get like that sometimes.
I remember once J.K. Rowling was tweeting about how much it hurt her inside to kill off some of her characters. And George just came in with, "Oh, my sweet summer child."
I saw that. Oh, my God.
But he's full of it because he had to finish Storm of Swords and then go back and do the Red Wedding chapter.
He did, yeah. That was the last one he wrote, wasn't it? Even though it was about a third of the way through.
Yeah, he said he was finished and he had to go, but he had to skip over it and then go back. And he really was attached to Catelyn Stark.
Yeah. Catelyn's a boss in the books. I know there's so many people that hate Cat in the show because they just changed everything about Cat. You know, even though the first series was a relatively true reflection of the book, Cat wasn't. You know, "Oh, Ned, please don't go to King's Landing." What?
Oh, she was the opposite.
What? Exactly, literally the complete polar opposite of that. She's like, no, you have to go. She was a political player.
I don't like I don't like her. I don't like her or her sister. They're
Look,
not,
I enjoy.
they're not favorites of mine.
Okay, Catelyn did turn me off when I first read the book because I was always a big fan of Jon, and it just really pissed me off when she said it should have been you. Like, I wanted to choke her to death. When Jon is like in Bran's room and she's, it should have been you, and she calls him by his name for like the first time ever instead of just calling him bastard. And she stops him from leaving the room and to say it should have been you, and this might be the last time that he's seeing his brother. Like what? Like that really upset me.
Yeah,
but I do enjoy your chapters.
She hadn't slept for about a week, though, had she? To be fair.
That's true.
But sleep deprivation is a bitch.
But she forced him to go to the wall. She forced Ned's hand to go to the wall, and I didn't like her for that as well, because she wouldn't let Jon stay there. If Ned was going to King's Landing, she was like, well, basically she was like, take your bastard with you. And Ned was like, he can't go to King's Landing, he'll be mocked, he's a bastard. And I think someone suggests the wall, him going to the wall, that he wants to go to the wall.
I think it was Maester Lewin, yeah.
But he's still a young boy, and he thinks he's going on this heroic journey to become a Night's Watchman. It's so grand, and really he's going to be with a whole bunch of thieves and robbers and rapists and murderers.
Oh yeah.
And I just couldn't forgive her for that.
That was really upsetting. Like, no one told him what this place really was. He had like all these delusions about what this place really was. I want to talk about how did you guys react the first time when Lady Stoneheart's first appearance, when Catelyn shows up at the end of A Storm of Swords? How did you both react to that?
Oh no, this bitch again.
I love Lady Stoneheart. This is the biggest disappointment for me. If they'd have brought back Lady Stoneheart, I might have even forgiven them. No, I would never have forgiven them for Dawn. But no, sorry, no. What was I thinking? No, Lady Stoneheart. Why would they not have her in there? And then they had the audacity to make the Hound piss in the river, as if like just to stick two fingers up to us all. This is not happening, people. Lady Stoneheart's not happening. I think she was macabre. She was horrific. She was brutal. She was full of vengeance and pure hate. I loved her.
For me, it was just that extra fantasy touch.
Yes.
That there's this undead woman in the woods that's hanging people. I love that.
With her neck hanging open and
absolutely
her face bleeding from tears, and this is horror.
I'm a huge fan of the Melisandre Book of the Fallen, and there's like a lot of that gory fantasy type stuff in that book series, and this was just so that for me, and I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, it was okay.
It was quite shocking for me because I saw.
I'm just gonna be a bitter Betty over here.
But it's all meh.
That feast chapter with Brienne is intense. You gotta admit.
Yeah,
like,
that is good. That is good.
That's like, I'm like, shit. He's eating her face. Oh, but I can't read.
Oh God, Brienne. Feast for Crows is my favorite book, and I always stand by Feast for Crows. And the Brienne chapters is one of the reasons why I love those Brienne chapters. They're amazing. Some of the best chapters that George R. R. Martin has ever written.
Yeah.
I love Feast for Crows too, but I love Cersei's chapters. I think Cersei and Jamie's. I think both of those are really good.
Cersei bugs me a little bit. She's so paranoid and crazy.
Yeah, but like her, I don't know, just like the way that she is, it's so good to me. Like the her saying that Kevin is helping, he's I don't know, Jamie, he's probably teaching Lancel to wipe his ass. I don't know why.
She's such a diva.
Yes.
She's a diva. I'm here for it. I really am. I love it. I'm a huge fan of divas.
my favorite was a Game of Thrones because it just set everything up for me, and I do believe that all the information that we need to know about the end game is in that book.
Really?
Yes.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, she thinks that Gemma thinks that it foreshadowed Arya's death really early, and we disagree.
Really? How so? How so? I'd love to
They
have that
will
discussion.
find your cold dead body with your needle from your cold dead corpse in the snow. When all this is said and done, this is literally one of the first things that Jon says to her. He's talking about her needlework, obviously, but come on, foreshadowing. But he does say when all this is said and done. So this is
at the end of it all.
Very end, yeah. And of course, then she gets needles. So this is prizing that needle from your cold dead hands. It's all
it said something about sewing all year or something. And
that's right.
That's kind of what she's doing with needles. She's sewing. She's killing people that have betrayed her. So she's
exactly. It's a metaphor for her, the journey that she's currently on right now. So I'm sorry, but that quote is already happening. So it has to see its conclusion. Sorry, Gray, but Arya is getting it.
In the leaked synopsis that leaked a little bit a while ago of George R. Martin's original plan, he named like 5 characters that were going to survive to the end. I don't remember all of them, but I know that one was Daenerys and one was Jon Snow. And I don't remember if either Arya or Sansa were on the list.
Arya, Bran, Tyrion.
Yeah, Tyrion.
Arya, Bran, and Tyrion. Okay.
But he did also say that there was going to be a love triangle between Jon, Arya, and Tyrion. And so it's clear that he changes his mind.
But do you change your mind about the characters that you want to live and die? Because he also said it was going to be a generational tale about these 5 characters. So if it's a generational tale about them, then he shouldn't change them. Like he shouldn't change whether they live or die.
I just can't ignore that foreshadowing. I can't get past that. For me, that is quite clear cut.
But they might find her body in the snow.
At the very end.
She might live on in Nymeria.
I mean, yeah, but like the characters that he named, I mean, they could all still die at the end, right?
Absolutely.
Like he says that these are the ones that are gonna survive till the end, but they can still die at the end.
Yeah, the last there's still an epilogue, you know.
Yeah, because George R. Martin is not cool with like.
Did he say that, or did he say they'll make it through all 3 books?
I don't remember the exact wording.
Because I think he said they'll make it through all 3 books, but now we're on book 5. What are we on book? We have 7 books. So
6 is the next one.
So they did make it through They did make it through the first 3 books.
So he wasn't lying, technically.
But that plot, you gotta admit, though, it was completely different. Like, there was like. You could see similarities here and there, but like it was.
Yeah, because I think Sansa was supposed to like have a baby by Joffrey.
Yeah. Sansa like completely betrays House Stark.
Yeah, she does. She's completely sides with Joffrey, but because she's had his baby. Yeah, so massive changes. I'm so glad Sansa didn't have Joffrey's baby. Oh, can you imagine?
Could you imagine that baby? God.
And with Daenerys' plot, she kills Drogo, and then she's like, and she runs off, and then she finds dragon eggs like in the desert.
Right.
So that's like different as well.
Right. She kills Drogo to avenge Viserys.
That's right.
Nuts.
Yeah. Right. Nut.
So yeah, he obviously had a lot of ideas that changed. A lot of stuff changed.
There was no mention of Aegon or Fagon.
No.
There was no mention of Dorne.
I felt like the story was much simpler back then too. Like he definitely grew.
Good times.
Can you imagine though if this had only been a trilogy? I don't even.
It wouldn't.
It's too much to tell. It could never have been. He was naive.
So grand.
No,
grand.
It might have been able to be a trilogy if you took all of the food descriptions out. If you take all of the food descriptions, he describes food so well that
Joffrey's wedding
yes.
was like
how hungry I get when I have literally have an alcohol problem, because when I read Game of Thrones, I have to have wine. I have to have a glass of wine because it just feels natural to have that. Every time Cersei has a sip or Tyrion, I'm like, cheers, you know?
Some brown bread fried in butter or bacon grease. Butter, jam, boiled egg.
You have the
Garlic
cookbook, don't you, GrayArea?
mushrooms and,
Yeah.
I saw that
wheels
on
of
Twitter.
cheese.
I
Wheels of
It's awesome. It's an awesome cookbook.
Once
then
he was describing this roast duck, and I was just like, that sounds like the best thing that I've
Yes.
ever.
And cream swans. Cream swans and baked apples. Like, damn. Who has that many courses at a fucking wedding? What the hell?
For real though, don't you get tired of eating? Don't you get full? You'd have to be just taking a bite out of everything. I hope they
Yeah.
gave that food to the poor, because there's no way they ate all
These
that
were
food.
these kind of medieval feasts that they had, like the Tudors, aren't they? This is what they had. They had like 16 course banquets, and they would
Like, they were
literally be
72.
eating all day long.
That's crazy. That is crazy.
Now I'm hungry.
So let's answer some more of these questions. Do you think Arya seeing Nymeria will be significant, or will it just be a cameo? What do you think, Gemma?
Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
you can go ahead, Gray. You can go ahead.
If it's just a cameo, that would blow me. If you're gonna bring in Nymeria, then you have to bring her in for a significant reason. You have to, if you just bring her in just so people watching can see her, when people know that she has this super wolf pack, she's been killing people, she's been just wreaking havoc in the Riverlands. And if you just bring her back just to say you brought her back, like, don't bring her back at all. That's just like, that would really blow me.
You're gonna get blown, Gray.
Don't say
because
that, Gemma.
because this is my train of thought. It won't just be to say, oh, here's Nymeria. There will be a purpose, but it will be a cameo, because I think it's going to show us a reflection of what Arya has become. Nymeria has now been romping around the Riverlands and the God's Eye with her super wolf pack for years and years. She's a savage wild animal. This is what we call feral. You do not reintegrate a feral beast back into a civilized human population. Once they're gone, they're gone. And I think Nymeria is going to be cool with Arya, because she'll smell her, she'll recognize her, and I think there will possibly be this tender moment that we've all been hoping for. But I think Arya's going to realize that Nymeria has changed, just like Arya has changed. Nymeria is now a savage beast. Arya is now essentially a savage beast. And I think it's this reflection of the paths that they've both taken that are parallels to each other. So I don't think they're going to just sort of get back together and merrily romp back into Winterfell, all hearts and roses. And no, I think it's going to be brief and fleeting, but with the feels.
See, my thing is, in the show, Arya's not a warg. So she's not been dreaming of Nymeria and going on these hunts with her every night, like book Arya has.
Yeah.
I think that and also for the show, Arya's going to King's Landing. Arya's going to King's Landing. They're not going to pay for this CG direwolf to follow her around King's Landing. It just wouldn't make sense. So I think it's probably just going to be a short cameo, and then we're not going to see Nymeria anymore. Maybe at the end of the season, but I think it's going to be very short. I think she might have like a smaller pack, but I don't think it's going to be like a grand wolf pack either.
You think Arya's going to King's Landing?
She said she was going to kill the queen.
I don't. I think something's going to happen between where she is now and King's Landing that will occur is going to change her mind in the form of some words of wisdom from a baker's boy that we all so fondly remember.
I'd be blown if she goes to King's Landing. I want her to take her ass home.
I think I don't know. I don't know if she. It depends on how consumed she is with vengeance. I think that if Arya really, really has this desire to kill, then she's gonna do that no matter what, and she's not gonna care about anything else until she's completed what she's done. But then maybe she'll be convinced otherwise.
Maybe that's what that whole Lannister soldier scene was about, because I don't get that. I did not get that scene at all. Yeah, all right. I mean, they're trying to show Arya that these guys who they fight for, they're still men with wives and children, and they don't really want to be there. And we're probably setting up some pathos for soldiers that are going to be fried in some kind of field of fire 2.0 in future episodes. But it was a bit on the nose for me. We've never come across a pack of any group of humans in the Riverlands or anywhere else in Westeros that have been all, yay, sharing is caring. What?
No, we have come.
And
across
winter's
them.
on the way.
We have come across them, and you know what happened to them? When with the guy with the Hound,
he got robbed and left for dead
and killed.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Killed. He was all like trying to tell the Hound, and then the Brotherhood without banners killed them all. So I think that might happen to those soldiers, and I don't want to say that Arya will do it, but I think it's a possibility that Arya might do it to I mean, what better disguise to wear to King's Landing than a Lannister soldier?
I kind of thought that maybe they would do something to piss Arya off. Like they would, I don't know, like they'd be commanded to do something, and then Arya sees it, and then she gets pissed off and kills them all. And then
she
goes
was
to King's
eyeing
Landing.
up those swords, wasn't she?
Yeah, she definitely was.
One thing can you remember the Euron scene where he walks up the steps towards Cersei and the mountain is having zero of that?
Oh my god, I was in love with that scene.
That was great.
I rewound it.
That moment where he just kind of looks at him and smiles, and that made me think, Arya, if she does go to King's Landing, she is not getting within an inch of Cersei Lannister.
Dude.
Unless
what if
she is wearing a very specific face. And there is only one face that is getting close to Cersei Lannister right now.
Jamie Lannister.
Uh-huh.
Or Qyburn.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, well, she took on Walder Frey's body and face and voice, so she's probably not got no qualms about Qyburn. Ugh.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I'm in love with the way the faceless men's magic is being portrayed in the show.
No. That's some of my favorite stuff. Is the stuff that goes on in Bravos. And it's like, is this canon what we're seeing? I don't think so. In the books, I don't think you will be able to take on a whole person's body.
Yeah, it's a bit much, isn't it? The voice, the inflections. I mean, it's a very difficult thing for the show to portray any other way than using the actor that she's supposed to be posing as at that point. I literally can't think of another way that they could do that.
It was very Mission Impossible. Like in Mission Impossible, they take off those. Yeah, it was just very that's what I thought of when I saw it. It's kind of corny, to be honest. I mean, Mission Impossible doesn't do it as much, but I don't like it. I don't like it.
I did enjoy the way that David Bradley played Arya being Walder Frey. I really enjoyed that. That was probably the best part of that scene for me. That cold opening was just his acting, because I believed it. I believe that was Arya trying to be Walder Frey, and then you could see Arya slowly coming to the forefront, but still him acting. That was class.
Remember back to season 2, the way Jaqen H'ghar changes his face? It's much more subtle. He turns around and then he turns back around and he's got a different face.
Right.
It is, yeah. Same body, same clothing, yeah, and same voice.
It's much more subtle. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Why the hell would Euron go right past an empty Dragonstone to visit to visit King's Landing, and then leave going right past the wall again? Could he take He could take Dragonstone and immediately be the most powerful person in Westeros. What do you think, Gemma?
Plot hole. Ding, ding, ding. I mean, how long has Dragonstone just been left there, sitting like a duck,
just chilling,
idly,
completely empty?
There's no one there.
No squatters or anything. Like
no one's
I guess
there.
People live on Dragonstone, right? Wouldn't
That's
they
what
at
I'm
least
saying.
say, do you know what? That castle looks kind of fancy and it's empty, and why don't
Let's go steal everything out of there and get rich.
What a load of bollocks, honestly. That's all I've got to say on that one. Yeah, massive plot hole. Massive.
Yes.
I think that Euron, he wants the Iron Throne, and he has like laser focus on getting the Iron Throne. So when I think Cersei sent him an invitation, if I can remember correctly. I think she said she invited him there. So he probably never gave Dragonstone a second look, because what he wanted was in front of him. So if I just go to King's Landing and she marries me, I'll be king and I don't have to do anything else but marry her. So I just think that was, I think that was his kind of focus. But you know, I still think that Dragonstone should not have been empty and abandoned. And I also think like it's unrealistic that Daenerys just pulls up and she's like the first one at the door. Like you're the queen. If you die,
they would have sent in scouts.
Like, well, what's gonna happen?
Yeah. I was like, they should have sent in scouts. They always send in scouts, people.
Yeah. So like you knew it was empty. You knew it was empty.
Yeah. How did you know this, Daenerys? Yeah.
I
see stuff like that.
Sorry, I struggled with that Euron scene, to be honest. I really did, because
it was cringy.
The dialogue was shocking. And I know the actor for Euron gets a lot of stick, but I mean, there's only so much you can do when you're given. It bothers me. The thing that annoyed me about that scene, I actually thought Euron looked great. Yes, he's still missing an eye patch, but
he looked more piratey.
He looked more how I envisioned Euron to look, and actually, he was quite sexy. You know, from a female perspective. I was digging the guy liner. It worked for me so much better than the previous Kingsmoot outfit. I know it was cold and he had his overcoat on, but this really worked to me as a look. But the scene itself basically concludes with him saying, "I'm going to bring you a priceless gift," and it's made quite clear that he was aware that Cersei would probably reject him and that he was going to have to bring this gift. So why didn't we just skip this scene altogether and have him bringing her a gift?
I wonder what the gift is. I think it's going to be the Sand Snakes. That's what I think.
Yeah,
absolutely. Some people said Tyrion.
Yeah,
I think you're right. It would, however, be hilarious to see Euron going back and forth from places to King's Landing, taking like different dwarf heads.
Oh, I was thinking the same thing. What if he brings her back the wrong dwarf and we get a repeat of some of those book scenes? And he just keeps bringing her the wrong dwarf.
That would be hilarious. This one has his nose.
And then we could bring in Penny and she could be all pissed off because her brother got killed. And yeah, they're not going there, guys. Wishful thinking.
No, it's definitely, I think you're definitely 100% right when you say it's the Sand Snakes.
It's nuts when I think about how much weight the books have in comparison with the show. Like they're like, you know about Marine in the show, but there's like so much. It's so much deeper in the book.
So much more, yeah. So much more.
It's so much more real, and I can't. That's why I'm always encouraging people to read books. Like my two My two, like, I get people to read the books. Like, my two closest friends have read the books because of me. Like, I forced them to. Because, like, I talked about it too much.
I am quite happy for people that either don't have the time or the inclination to read the books, to watch my channel, to watch the history and lore, and to get as much as that backstory as they can glean from my, you know, modest contribution. But there is no substitution for just sitting down for 8 solid hours a day for weeks and just being in that world. It's spectacular.
It is. I love the show. I don't want to ever get confused that I love the show, but I love the books for real. If there was an announcement right now, like, you can either see episode 2 of season 7, or you could get Winds of Winter. I want Winds of Winter.
Winds of Winter. Oh, every day of the week and twice on Wednesdays.
If someone said you could never watch another episode of Game of Thrones, but you get Winds of Winter, I would take Winds of Winter.
Winds of Winter.
Really?
Winds of Winter. Definitely.
Are you nuts? It's not even a question.
Yeah,
I'm the same, Gray. I love the show. And when I first heard that they were doing this book that I'd been reading for years, so yeah, it was more than 2 years ago. I was like, oh my Lord, are they actually doing this? How can they? And I couldn't get my head around how they were possibly going to pull this off. And the first series was...
It felt so good watching it.
Yeah, it was there. And I was believing it, and the characters were great, and we have pulled away, and I've got to the point now where, okay, I love the book, I love the show, I love the books more, but I still love the show. I love the actors, I love the cinematography, I love the fact it's so popular that they've got this budget to allow them to do the things they've done. They've made some horrendous and unforgivable mistakes, but you have to see them as two very separate entities at this point, I think. But that's not going to stop you bitching and being a book wanker, I'm afraid.
I mean, Lord of the Rings fans have been going through this for a while now.
Exactly.
So, yeah. I mean, I like Lord of the Rings, but...
It's a cross we have to bear.
Yeah.
Well, I'm different.
They'll never do it right.
I'm different than you guys because I watched the show first. The show is what made me read the books.
A lot of people are like, that's a lot of people's story, I think.
And is that not then an amazing thing that's given you?
It is.
I will always love the show because if it was not for the show, I would have I read, but I'm not a big... I am now. I wasn't a big reader of fantasy. Like, I could never read like Dungeons and Dragons. Like, that was never my
That was
thing.
my childhood.
That was never Go ahead.
I was going to say, if I could give you a suggestion, a great fantasy series is The Kingkiller Chronicles by Patrick Rothfuss. I think you would like it.
I've started reading that. I'm still reading Name of the Wind.
I've been a massive geek since before I was born. I came out the womb being a massive geek. I've done the LARP, I've done the desktop role play, I've been a mage, I've been a warrior. I have lived literally, I had like 0 friends at school other than fellow geeks like me. I've spent hours creating latex weapons. You have no idea. Fantasy has always been my jam. And
mine was always history. Like, I really liked history. Like, my grandma is a historian and a genealogist. So I used to be with her a lot, and she would just be taking me to like all these cemeteries and all these boring vacations and stuff where we're going to Gettysburg today and we're going to learn about... I'm like, oh, but I really started to like history. So
can't you just take me to a theme park, Gran? You know?
when I first saw an episode of Game of Thrones, and I'm like, what is this? Is a zombie a zombie ice thing? Are we doing this right now? And I seen Winterfell, everything changed. Everything changed. It's like this I don't know, it's just so balanced with history. It's like what I guess you would call it a historical fiction kind of, or
absolutely,
historical
Yeah.
fantasy. It is, and I would have never, like, I would say 10 years ago, ever think that I would be reading or have an obsession with a book that even has dragons in it. It's crazy, but I love it. Love it.
On my fantasy bookshelf, I actually have the historical accounts of the Wars of the Roses next to the Song of Ice and Fire, because that's where
awesome.
it belongs.
Yes. Yes.
Do you think there is a connection between the werewolf trees and the many-faced god?
Yeah.
The many faces could refer to the faces of the trees and the sacrificial rituals that's repeatedly associated with the werewolves certainly befit those of a god of death would demand. They worded it a little weird, but yeah. So what do you guys think about that?
Absolutely. I think it's very weird that the House of the Undying, or the House of the fucking Undying, the House of Black and White has so much weirwood stuff in it, like weirwood chairs and a weirwood door. And I also think that was purposefully picked out because she has warging ability. And I definitely think if I like went into detail, we would be here. But I do think that there's a connection. Because
what do you think?
Yeah,
oh, sorry.
I absolutely agree, because the thing is, the many-faced god is all of the gods. It has the statues of the weeping woman of Lys. It has the black goat of Cahor. It has everyone, Bacalon the Pale Child. They're all in there, but they always say that this comes back to Syrio Forel, who was also from Braavos, and just that sentiment in Braavos in general that there is only one god. And the old gods are the weirwoods, the nature. It's almost like paganism in the real world, and paganism was the first and the only universal religion at one point. It's where all the other religions have stemmed from over millennia and then branched off into their own separate ways. So this has to be, I was going to say going back to their roots, but that's a wonderful pun, isn't it, for weirwoods?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think there's definitely a connection. I think it's this. These are all manifestations from different cultures, but I think ultimately it's a tree, and it does branch back down to that original and possibly universal religion that was always there from the first, and that is the old gods, in my opinion.
That being said, I have to keep you guys for a little bit longer because I have to ask, what do you make of the Forsaken scene where Euron is on the Iron Throne with all the other gods impaled upon it, and he's kind of got like a Cthulhu face, tentacles. Jordan Martin makes a lot of Lovecraft references.
He does.
I've uncovered.
I did a whole
many
video on Cthulhu and the references, the Lovecraftian references within A Song of Ice and Fire. It's massive. This is clearly Lovecraft is clearly a massive influence for George R.R. Martin. This is where my Cersei theory stems from. This Cersei Night's Queen. I think she is the queen that he's sat next to on that throne, and I think she's a white or maybe more at that stage.
Oh my god, I would die of happiness.
Are you on board with me yet, Gray? Are you feeling me yet with my Cersei Night Queen tinfoil?
I'm all for it. I'm all for Cersei Night Queen.
You endorse.
I endorse. I give you my
endorsement. I'm messed up in the head because I just really like Cersei for some reason.
A lot of people really like Cersei, but they don't want to admit that they like Cersei. But think about books and show without Cersei.
I mean, it would be lame.
Oh,
That would be
lame.
lame, but it's good. I mean, I love Cersei because like when she killed the High Sparrow, the look on his face, I was just yes.
It was like,
and then how she just sips
checkmate.
the wine. Yes.
Checkmate.
She's boss. She is boss. Yeah, and this is the thing. You know, you've got Jon Snow who's all come back from the dead, and how cool is that? And he's the prince that was promised. He's a secret Targaryen. And then you've got Dany with all of her dragons, and then Cersei. She doesn't really have much, but do not fuck with her. Because
I mean,
she doesn't need dragons. She doesn't need to come back from the dead. She's Cersei motherfucking Lannister, and she's gonna take you down, and she's gonna kill all of her enemies. I love that.
Cersei deserves respect just for that.
Exactly.
And like I love how when she's having the conversation with Jamie, she's like I understand that the one who loses dies. She was the one that said that. When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die. Like
Exactly.
Cersei understands that better than anybody else, if you ask me. She knows she plays the game.
She's been a player since day one, and she plays it harder and faster than anybody else up to this point.
I mean, and she makes mistakes like anybody that plays the game, but she plays it. And she's been doing a pretty good job of it. If you ask me, she's still alive. So
And to come back on that walk of shame, that was
absolutely.
the lowest point that you could take a person to. Literally naked, exposed, covered in shit and being spat on and bleeding. And look where she rose from those ashes, you know?
Absolutely.
She did. She's a boss. I really like Cersei. Like, I'm not afraid to say that I like her. And I think she doesn't get from the people around her. She doesn't get the respect that she should get from like Kevin Lannister and Pycelle. Like they're all, if Jamie was making the same moves that Cersei has been making or was making, they would have been like, good job. But because she's a woman, her like that.
Look at what Robert Baratheon did to the kingdoms. Robert Baratheon bankrupted the kingdoms. Like Robert Baratheon is like the common people hated him as a king. The common people are like, oh, we missed the time that Aerys was king.
Yeah, they wanted Aerys back. They were still making secret toasts to Aerys, weren't they?
Exactly.
For all the smack we've heard about the Targaryens, the small folk actually think back fondly to that period of time, don't they? This is an Arya scene, a chapter in the Riverlands, isn't it? When and they're saying, oh, you know, this wouldn't have happened under the last king, bless his soul, or something. And she says, what, Robert? And they go, no, Aerys.
The Dragon King.
Yeah, and she's like, what?
Absolutely. Because
like the history surrounding the story or the world of Ice and Fire, like far as the Targaryens, and depends on who's telling you the story. Like Cersei tells Joffrey, the truth will be what you make it. So that the history that we're hearing isn't always accurate, and we've seen that play out with Bran. We're supposed to believe that Ned slew Arthur Dayne in single combat, but that wasn't the case. That was the truth for what Ned said. That's what Ned said happened. Yeah. But it's not like that. And I think this story has so many instances where things aren't like that. Like if you read The World of Ice and Fire, they talk about how Robert was a great king. The Iron Bank, like the one that visits Jon at the Wall. Jon is a great Robert. We want to go back to the days when Robert was a king. There was so much peace. But then you hear from another person, they want Aerys back. So it's just like it's so much of that. And I think when Gemma, when you brought up that the long night never happened, that is crazy, because that could really be the case.
It would blow my mind. It would blow my fucking mind. I would cry.
I think this history is written by the victors, and this skewed sense of what is real and what's not real is best illustrated in the character of Jaime Lannister, because until we get that bathtub scene, he is a vicious, vile, child murdering, incestuous, pompous,
Kingslayer.
nasty. Yeah, he's the Kingslayer. He's dishonorable. He forsook his vows. He would turn on anyone. He would stab them in the back. He would slice their throat. And actually, he's just become the monster that everybody has said he is. And actually, his narrative, when we finally get his narrative of those events, everything, and it's you suddenly think, I actually feel really shitty for disliking him as a character, because this is just so much more to this. And actually, yeah, it just wasn't. It was slander essentially, but he wasn't going to give them the satisfaction, was he? Because he's the proud lion, so he just became the person they said he was.
Yeah,
that's George R. Martin's skill at making you just completely go 360 on a character, or 180 on a character.
Absolutely, yeah.
And feel for the character, feel empathy for the character. He writes his characters so realistic.
Yeah, they're not just like one-dimensional.
He actually said that Jaime Lannister is probably his most challenging character to write for that reason, because he is probably the most morally grey character in the whole series. And that must have been exactly. Yeah, he makes mistakes and he does things and he's thrust into situations where there is no clear good option and no clear bad option. There are just options, and he has to take one of them.
I mean, what would have happened if Jaime hadn't have killed the Mad King? Destruction and death on like a mass scale.
What would have happened if he hadn't have pushed Bran out of the window?
Exactly. His powers would have never been awakened.
And Bran would have gone and told everybody what he'd seen. Jaime and Cersei would probably both be dead. Tom and Joffrey and Myrcella would all be dead. This isn't, this wasn't a clear-cut, wow, what a cruel, evil child killing. He had a choice. Kill this child, or my entire family and my children and the woman I love die.
What would any of us make in that
Exactly.
What would any of us do in that situation?
I'd be pushing a kid out of a window if it came between me and the people I love.
Me too. Me too.
Yes, we all agree with pushing children out windows.
God.
In theory.
In theory.
Fortunately.
Hopefully we're never in that position.
Okay. Thank you guys so much for being here with me. This was a lot of fun to have this talk with you. Do you want to give your outro, Gemma?
Yeah, this was just essentially three nerds nerding out for a couple of hours, which is absolutely fantastic. This is why I enjoy reaching out to the community like this. I need an outlet because no one in my real life is into this as much as me. So thank you for having me on. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you to both of you for being part of this amazing discussion. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Anytime. And Gray?
Thanks so much for having me. I love talking Song of Ice, Fire, and Game of Thrones, and it was just fun. We laughed a lot.
Absolutely. So, thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe for more ideas of Ice and Fire.